Hi guys, welcome back to our Express Pilates workout. My name's Chris, I'm an exercise physiologist here at Better Exercise Physiology. In today's class I just wanted to go through some mobility exercises, some really nice ones to loosen up your spine. Instead of doing stretching, the mobility exercise a lot gentler, but we actually get a lot more out of it in terms of sort of stability at each level while adding that mobility. So we'll go through those exercises. Let's start down on the mat, we'll go from there. We'll start lying on your back, feet together, knees together, arms out to the side, head and neck relaxed. We're just going to be rolling your knees side to side. So I've picked out some of my favourite mobility exercises for today's session. We're going to work through some hip and lower back, and then we'll come through the upper back. And just trying to get everything working and loosening. We'll focus on some of those tight areas that are really common with most people. On this next one, bring your feet right apart to the edge of the mat, and that same movement, side to side. So he's going to stretch around the side and the front of the hip a little bit more. Try and bring the inner thigh down towards your heel, down towards the mat, as that leg drops in. It's a nice one to loosen everything up through that lower back, particularly if you do wake up with a stiff or sore back at all. Got a couple more here. Try and push into that stretch on the last couple. As it starts to give a little bit, what will happen is things will warm up. So by the end of the stretch, everything will be a little bit looser and you can push into it a bit more. Okay, and back to the middle. I want you to cross your right leg over the left. Have your left heel in the center of the mat, right leg crossed over the left, and then we're just pulling our leg out to the right. So a lot of lefts and rights. I'll say that again, right leg crossed over the left, and then we're pulling the leg out to the right. Try not to confuse you too much. As you draw across, use the weight of that right leg to pull the knee and hip across. We're trying to stretch all the way a little bit further up on this opposite side now. If you want to get a little bit more of a stretch, you can bring your heel, the heel that's on the mat, up closer towards you a bit more. That helps anchor this stretch and get into that hip a little bit further. Again, try and push into it, so by the end of the set we're trying to stretch out a little bit further than we were at the start. We'll do two more. And coming back to the middle. So swap the legs over. Bring your right leg down to the mat. Left leg comes up, you cross it over, just like we're sitting cross-legged. Keep your heel up close towards you, and we're using the weight of that left leg to pull across the left. It's going to stretch out through that opposite hip. Really nice one to open up through that hip and lower back. As you pull the knee across, bring it as far as you can down towards the ground and towards the mat. Just opening up through the hip, through the lower back. Really nice stretch. If for any reason any of these stretches don't feel right, just do a small movement to start. See if that is okay. Sometimes it's as we get towards the end range that we feel that pain. So just take out that last little bit of the movement and maybe just work through a shorter range. If it still doesn't feel right, you might need to see someone and just get something a little bit more specific, whether it's strengthening up some of the deeper muscles or working on what's actually causing the pain and the problem and addressing that. But for the time being, just skip those exercises and move on to the next one. Okay, that'll be the last one. We'll bring it back to the middle. So the hips are nice and warm. We're going to go into our upper back. I'll get you lying on your side. These ones are called book openings. We've got our arms in front of us, one on top of the other. Knees in front of us, again, one on top of the other. And you can have your head either on the mat or, if you prefer, on a pillow if that's more comfortable. With your top arm, we're going to reach it up towards the roof. And I want you to rotate as far as you can around towards the ground. And then we're coming back into the middle. So we're trying to get a stretch through the upper back and rib cage. So as far as you can, holding for a second, and then rotating back to the middle. You should feel a bit of a stretch through the front of the shoulder. I want you to reach that arm up on an angle. So as your arm comes across, reach it up above shoulder height, and then come back to the middle. If you're still not getting much of a stretch, what you can do is straighten your bottom leg away. What we do when we straighten that bottom leg, we just roll the hip in a little bit more. We want to make sure our hips stay still. If they're rolling with us, we're not going to get that stretch through the upper body. We need that strong anchor of keeping the hips still. So you can try it with that bottom leg straightened away if you prefer. We'll do a couple more. Yeah, just holding for a moment at the end of the stretch. Allow everything to relax into it. The thing with these stretches, with all these mobility ones, it doesn't feel like you're getting much of a stretch, but if we were to measure your first one compared to the last one of the set, you'll find you will have loosened up and opened up a lot more by the end of the set. Just doesn't feel like it as much because we're doing one after the other, and it just adds each time. It adds on to that flexibility and that mobility. Last one, I just want you to hold out here, take a deep breath in, exhale, rotate further, hold that stretch, breath in again, exhale and rotate further one more time, and come back to nil. Roll over, we've got that same stretch on the other side. Arms are out in front of us, head's resting down, either with your knees out in front or with that bottom leg straight. I prefer to do it with that bottom leg straight just to get a bit more of a stretch. If you're already quite tight, you might get a good stretch anyway with the knees bent. With your top arm reaching up towards the roof, we're watching that hand as we come, so our neck's rotating. Hold it for a second out there and then come back to the middle. Watch that hand come back to the middle and then watch it come across, rolling your neck. Bring your hand up and across, higher than the shoulder, and then back to the middle. If your neck gets a bit sore doing this, and that can happen, one thing to do is to keep your head straight so you're not rotating the neck at all. The other option is to bend your elbow as you rotate. If you're bending your elbow, it doesn't place as much strain on the nerves coming down the arm. So just see if that helps. Again, if it still doesn't feel right, sometimes just a little bit more specific work with an exercise physiologist or physiotherapist can help just to address the underlying causes. We've got two more. Pushing into it a little bit more in these last couple. On this last one, we're going to hold and we're going to take those breaths in and out again. So I want you to hold it out there, take a deep breath in, exhale and rotate, inhale again, and exhale and rotate a little bit further. And from there, we are going to come back into the middle, up on our hands and knees now. So that was our upper body, just releasing through the rib cage, releasing that tightness. And next one, we're going to be doing some cat stretches, incorporating that through the entire spine, rounding up as high as you can, chin and pelvis tucked, and reversing that and sinking down. We're just going to do 5 in either direction. Rounding up as high as you can, expanding the ribs and shoulders, tucking your pelvis, then reversing that, sinking the ribs down, tucking the pelvis forwards. Let's do 3 more. As high as you can at the top. Should start to feel really nice as we get into that tightness and we loosen. If you feel anywhere that's particularly tight, focus on those areas to stretch. High as you can. Collapsing into the bottom. We've got 1 more. Tucking the chin under as you round up. Looking up towards the roof as you sink down. We can come into child's pose, another nice one, just stretching out. Reach your fingertips as far as you can up the mat, claw them up, and then sit back, get that stretch through the shoulders. And coming up, we're going to come up onto our knees, just 1 more stretch. I want you to take a big step forwards with your left foot. We're pushing our hips forwards to open this back hip flexor, and then coming back from there. People often get really tight through the hip flexor, just a consequence of sitting all the time. Cyclists and runners tend to be quite tight as well, just to the nature of that sport, those sports. So this is a good one, just to open up the front of the hip flexor. If you've got quite a sway back, so you kind of got that big arch through your lower back, this one's going to be important for you, just to help bring the pelvis back to a neutral position. When you bring the hands onto the back of your head, push your hips forward. So get that stretch as far as you can forward, and just rotate. side to side. Takes a little bit of balance. This one's going to push into that hip flexor stretch, but it's also going to give you a stretch to the lower back. Keep your hips forward. We'll just do a couple more rotations. Elbows are up, chest is up. One more either side. Push the hips forward. And coming back, swap the legs over. We're going to finish with that on the other side. So big step forward with your right leg. Start just by pushing the hips forward, opening that back hip flexor, and then bring the hips back. And then going again, opening as far as you can. Try and push into that back hip flexor, and then coming back. This one can be a nice one to do after you do go for a run, or if you're a cyclist, after you go for a cycle, just to help open up all those muscles around the pelvis that have been tightening, particularly those hip flexors. We get a little bit into our quads as well. Hands up to the back of the head, push your hips forward and rotate. Push as far as you can. Out to the other side, just going side to side, releasing the lower back, releasing that hip flexor. Keep your hips pushed forward. So still opening and we're pushing forward towards our front foot. Got one more either side. Just a little bit further, stretch into that. To the other side, stretch into that and coming back. Well done. Really nice way just to loosen up, particularly first thing in the morning or last thing at the end of the day. I just want you to walk around, get up, feel how loose, feel how much better everything feels once you do warm it up. Go through these exercises every day and you're just going to feel so much better by the end of the week. You're not going to get to the end of the week and just feel like your body's wrecked from whatever you've been, all the stress you've been putting through it. This will make a huge difference. So try it every day. If you've got any comments, leave them below. If you want any more videos, check us out on YouTube or at betterexercise.com.au. Thanks a lot.